Hello, everyone, and I'm Garima Bajpai. I'm here to talk about continuous integration and delivery, the SRE DevOps overlay. You must be having a good view on what the topic is all about through Safir. Now, I would like to talk about from a high level futuristic perspective, why should you care about this topic? So before we actually get going and get started on the conversation today I'm going to have with you, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Garima Bajpai, based out of Ottawa, Canada. I am the founder for the DevOps community of practice here in Canada, which has several chapters. It has around about 1,500 members, and it is at various locations. If you have not checked out this community of practice, I would do recommend to do that. I'm also the chair for the Continuous Delivery Foundation Ambassador Group, which is a group of practitioners, primarily in the continuous delivery space, which is fostering change, evolution, and future perspective of continuous delivery when it comes to open source technology and tools. I'm also a course creator and content provider with various affiliated organizations. If you want to kind of check out my work, you can go to DevOps Institute as well as Continuous Delivery Foundation for references and content and courses created on DevOps and SRE primarily. I am also nominated for the DevOps Dozen in 2022 Community Awards for Top DevOps Evangelist. And one of my core assignments for this year is I would be publishing a book on strategizing continuous delivery in cloud with Pact. It is coming out in July. If you haven't checked out that, I would recommend to do that as well. It is available on Amazon for pre-ordering. So now I get started with site reliability engineering and DevOps. It is amazing and hard to believe that we only started a decade ago with all this, right? With most of the practices and concepts which are in the continuous delivery space, there's exponential growth of tools. There are also increasing complexity. It is inevitable that the complexity which is increasing with the rapid adoption, and it is bringing new operational challenges, risks, overhead, and cognitive load on the practitioners. Moreover, cost. With more and more services and applications moving to the cloud, financial practices and engineering practices are getting tightly integrated. So if you have not heard of FinOps or cost optimization drives in big and small organizations, I think it's high time to check out that movement as well. And lastly, I would say skill shortage, that there are many aspects of learning. People are getting behind due to lack of self-development and introducing a major skill shortage. So there are challenges and opportunity for both sides, DevOps and site reliability engineering. But before we actually move forward, we would also like to understand that how did we reach to this stage? So if you think about how these two movements got started, and from a DevOps perspective, the DevOps practices were primarily kind of developer centric. It was a push from the developer productivity, and obviously the evangelists started looking at how do we shorten the lead time for our software delivery or incremental deliveries. And that's where, a lot of practices got kind of introduced and adopted. Whereas there was a specific set of industry practices on an evangelist, which were looking at like, how do you bring enhanced reliability posture when you talk about decentralizing, or when you talk about bringing DevOps practices on the table with flow, feedback, and experimentation. So there was like a constant push on how do you bring customer experience, reliability, posture, and increasing stability with the increase of developer productivity in the same context. So we see that these two mutually enforcing practices are in making for several years now. And we are at a stage where we would like to kind of discuss that how site reliability engineering and DevOps would be pivoting to an optimal operating model. And to fully realize the potential of, let's say, DevOps at scale, the integration of SRE practices is essential. Everybody agrees to that today. Balancing investment in tools, upskilling for reliability vis-a-vis rapid innovation is needed to bring that optimal operating model in place. And could continuous delivery be that common code, the common trigger to be the binding force behind that optimal operating model? Let's explore more. So before we actually go further into this conversation, it is also important we talk about the law of diminishing returns. And why do we do so here in this talk is because if you think about DevOps practices or SRE practices, there's a certain set of output which is which is expected or which is aligned to the business goals. And there's a substantial amount of time and effort needed as an input to steer that, right? But the more we actually move towards, incremental deliveries or enforcing these practices, we will realize that there is a point where we will have the point of maximum yield, that now howsoever we provide you with input, with time, with people, with effort, with practices, with tools, we have reached to a maximum yield point. And then from there we would be dropping our productivity to negative returns because of the complexity which is getting introduced, the number of tools which we have adopted, and also due to other factors which we have talked about, like cost and skill gap. So in order to ensure that we understand that there is an optimal operating model which is needed to be put in place for individuals, communities, and systems to be sustainable, what can be that optimal operating model, and how do we know, or how do I know that my organization is ready for that SRE DevOps overlay, which we are talking about here, which can bring that optimal operating model in existence? So there are a few things which we can do as an individual, as teams, as organizations, and these are questions which we probably will have to ask ourselves. So first of all, the main business objective, why are we deploying, and what is our mission, vision, what kind of, applications are we deploying? Are they monolithic or microservices? Where are we deploying these applications? What are the core objectives for modernization? How many cloud providers are involved? How could we keep them converged? And lastly, how often do I want to deploy and why? If we start answering these questions, we will come to a point where we would be able to assess or analyze our state of nation from an organization, individual, or community perspective, that whether we are ready for that DevOps SRE overlay, and start talking about the common core, which is the continuous delivery and associated practices. And when we talk about that common core, essentially we are talking about 4 principles. Declarative way. The entire system has to be described declaratively. And the second principle is version and immutable. The canonical desired state is version, and does not matter which tool is it. The third principle is pulled automatically. So how much operational overload we have in the system, and if we approve changes automatically and apply it to the system, that would be one of the principles which can help you get to that optimal operating model. And the fourth point is continuously reconciled. So software agents to ensure that correctness and alert. on diversions. So if you think about these four principles make sense to your delivery, let's continue this dialogue. So we have reached to a point where we have built some consensus on the common core, continuous delivery practices and associated practices like continuous integration and deployment can provide that common core for SRE and DevOps overlay. Now, we also have I would say, challenge in terms of how we measure this progress. And primarily, if you think about the measurement perspective, a lot of things have been done. And mostly, we talk about industrial practices or best practices around DORA. And I would like to kind of also highlight through my talk that if you are looking at that common core, the optimal operating model, it's time for you to go beyond DORA. And I would highlight some of the functional advancements which are associated with this. Functional advancements of super cloud, or sometimes referred to as cross cloud, providing interoperability with specifically continuous delivery capability. So we'll have to kind of assess that posture moving forward. Using an event-driven approach and introducing a high level of reusability, flexibility, and full stack interoperability for the complete software lifecycle, being the second one. The third functional advancement I would emphasize is progressive delivery with machine learning capability and reducing the challenge of adoption of progressive delivery. The fourth bullet item, and that I call silver bullet, is SBOM for the future. As SBOM, software bill of material, continues to evolve, so is the framework for data exchange and the need for a standard format. So these are the functional advancements which you can correlate to your measurement of success in getting to that optimal operating model. Now, I would highlight this SBOM as one of the core of fundamental or foundational capabilities, which will help you manage the complexity and securability of modern software deployment. Gartner believes that in 2025, 60% of the organizations procuring mission-critical software solutions will mandate SBOM disclosure in their license and support agreement, up from less than 5% in 2022. It is essential to make it as a measurable part, a tangible part of your delivery as you go along. There are operational advancements as well, which we should see for measuring, portability being one of them. There are a variety of languages, platforms, and frameworks being used today. How do we make portability as one of the measuring criteria for our software delivery components to reduce the cognitive workload for not only developers, but also for SRE practitioners? Flow optimized and observable deliveries. So whenever we are going to decentralize our delivery, we go from monolithic to microservices, we have a distribution management system, we need to have a flow optimized and observable system. So have you introduced that component in your software delivery? That can also be one of the measurable aspects of the common core. I will also talk about resource optimized and resilient. That means optimized posture of infrastructure. It is not okay to add fixed cost to your products as you go along. So you will have to look at that optimization at the infrastructure layer. And lastly, I would say real-time and dynamic. So how real-time and dynamic your software delivery capabilities are, which can support rapid scale up, scale down, and address the real-time requirements. When we talk about all these changes, we also talk about the infinite bandwidth and zero latency for a demand and supply value chain system. So we need to kind of ensure that we have some supporting measurable general purpose pipelines and services which can be serving our fundamental needs or general purpose, or they can be reusable. We cannot forget small and medium business services. So think small before you think big, and high performance community collaboration hubs which are mostly, needed for entrepreneurs, for, evangelists, for practitioners to foster collaboration and create a possible futuristic approach on all this. I will not talk about more on this because state-of-art AI capabilities are going from beyond cloud native to edge native, and full stack interoperability and enhancing reusability can be some of the key areas of um, focus for the next generation practitioners. When we talk about the overlay of DevOps and SRE, we also think about net zero commitment, and SRE can lead the way there. One of the critical threads which ties everything back together is net zero commitment. SRE can lead that way. And what if we can create a marketplace of carbon neutral products and services where we can cascade the impact? If we would intend to do so, we might have to consider future evolutionary changes, and some of the next steps could be as follows, like mapping your carbon footprint for products and services and identifying hotspot features, guidelines for financing of ICT products and services, certification and decarbonization of ICT services and products through rules and processes. So we have tried to kind of ensure that we bring here and now aspects of the SRE DevOps overlay through Safir's conversation, and also try to ensure what is in store for future from an optimal operating model perspective when we talk about SRE DevOps overlay, and how continuous delivery stack can create that pivot or create that binding together perspective around all this for the future. If you like this conversation, do follow me on LinkedIn, or get in touch with me or Continuous Delivery Foundation through our social handles. But for now, I would say goodbye and thank you for listening to our talk.